So here's a question. At what point does keeping Biden on the campaign trail constitute elderly abuse? Now, look, we can go through and see the motivations behind the Democrats pushing Joe Biden as their nominee. When we take a look at the history of presidential elections, that the incumbent president, when running for re-election, almost never loses. In fact, the times that they do lose is when they are basically a third term of the president before them. And so seeing all of that, realizing that the chances of beating Donald Trump in 2020 were very slim to begin with, you wonder if the whole giving Joe Biden the nomination wasn't about whether or not they thought Joe Biden can win, but rather giving him a warm send-off as evidence of his mental decline becomes ever more apparent. So we start wondering if this is just a way to end his career, because there was a time when, whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him, you had to admit that he was a fairly savvy politician with the ability to speak. But not so much anymore. Most of his interviews are incomprehensible. He can hardly stay focused. And during the brief moments in which he does appear to be there, he still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, such as this.
Last thing. Look, Anderson, you and I have talked about this. We have an opportunity now to take in a recovery act, a real recovery. We can fundamentally change the science relating to global warming.
Okay, now did you see Anderson Cooper and that other guy there? I believe it was Sanjay Gupta. You know, their facial expressions is because they've been listening to him go on for a little while there, and they're like, oh my God, this guy isn't there. You know, this guy just go back and rewatch, what their facial expression was after having Biden speak for a little while. And then he gets a moment of sobriety, right? And he still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Change the science around global warming. We call it science because it doesn't change, right? Every time X happens, Y is the result. That is a very simplified way of talking about what science is. It's about the truth, the cause and effect relationship of things. The only things that change are the variables. The variable of X, the variable of Y, but the science of what happens does not change. So what is he talking about when he's off there talking about the changing the science of global warming? Well, you can't change the science if you actually believe global warming is, a thing, as far as man-made climate change. Now, climate change, is something that is constant, and this gets into the only constant is change. The climate has been changing throughout history, back and forth between warming and cooling. So even then, after going off on an incoherent, rant and statement, he suddenly seems like he's present for a moment, but then what he says doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And CNN knows that Joe Biden is not going to have a chance at defeating President Trump, which is why they're writing articles such as this. Biden has one VP pick that stands above the rest. Now, take a look at the first paragraph here. Joe Biden has moved into vice presidential sweepstakes phase of his candidacy. Although the choice of a vice president rarely matters as much as the media buildup suggests it will, long gone are the days when regional balance on the ticket was vital to the outcome. Biden's pick this time will be significant. Now, they're not willing to go as far as to tell you that the reason why it's significant is because that's the person who's really going to be running the country. And likely Joe Biden is going to have to resign from office if he ever did get elected, because he is not mentally capable of fulfilling the role of president. Now, CNN, though, proves that they are completely delusional and deficient as well, where they go off and say, while there are many good possibilities from which Biden can choose, one stands out more than any other. Senator Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren? Really? That's who you're thinking would be the best VP pick. So let me get this straight. You're taking someone who ran in the presidential primary against Joe Biden, lost big. And you're now saying that she is the one that would be the great VP pick? Are you kidding? I've never understood this idea of picking as a VP someone who already lost in the race against you if you're looking for someone to make up for your weaknesses. If you're looking for someone who has expertise that you don't. Because if the person wanted, say, Elizabeth Warren, well, she probably would have been the nominee. Why you pick losers as your nominee for VP, I would never understand. And Elizabeth Warren is a garbage candidate. She's constantly shifts whatever way the wind's blowing. She has no moral founding, no moral grounds, and she lies about every part of her past and her history. I mean, she is a pathological liar. Well, then again, that is par for the course when it comes to the Democrats. I mean, pretty much most of them are pathological liars. I mean, CNN is filled with pathological liars claiming to be journalists. So I guess the whole pathological liar part is not really considered a hindrance for Elizabeth Warren. But she is a complete garbage candidate who swings whatever way she believes the wind is going to be blowing in order to be convenient at the time and rewrites her history in order to get to that. But the problem is she's not very good at lying. If you're going to be a Democrat, which necessitates you be a pathological liar, you need to at least be good at lying. And so this whole idea that Elizabeth Warren would be a good VP pick, not so. Right? But hey, it would be a good pick if you want Trump to win. So, no one really expects Joe Biden to be able to win in this election. And there are a lot of people on the left have indicated that they have no interest in voting for Joe Biden. All right, so we already know that this is pretty much going to be given to President Trump. And whereas President Trump is seen day in and day out leading on the coronavirus response, Joe Biden barely seems like he has an idea of what's going on, that he barely even knows where he's at half the time. And this is interesting. Now, Joe Biden, well, as part of his delusion, is stating that he's already starting to put together a White House transition team. He's already acting as though he's got this in the bag somehow, that this is going to lead to him being the president, and he's already putting together a transition team. CNN reports former Vice President Joe Biden announced on Thursday that he is already starting to put together a White House transition team just days after officially becoming the presumptive Democratic nominee. The question was raised during a virtual fundraiser Thursday evening when Biden was asked by a donor how he would be able to replenish a number of departments that the donor said had been left without talent under the Trump administration. Well, let's first analyze that whole left without talent. Oh, you mean because the Democrats are blocking all the nominees from getting Senate confirmations? Yes, how the Democrats have been stonewalling, slow walking everything, that even back in 2017, just months after Trump had taken office, that it was reported that if the Democrats continue to slow walk every nominee like they were, it would take Trump 6 years to get all the nominees through the Senate confirmation process to fill the administration. But no, it's somehow Trump's fault that the federal government is not fully staffed. Oh no, it couldn't be anything about the Democrats stalling and blocking the nominees. Jeepers. Okay, and then Biden responds, "I promise you, that has already begun," Biden said. "Sounds presumptuous. I don't want to say we started thinking about it a month ago. We did, because that sounds like I was certain that this was going to happen, that I would be the nominee. I don't want it to sound like that, but it has to happen, and that's why the transition team is already being put together." So Biden, who doesn't even look like he has a shot at the actual 2020 election, he doesn't look like he's even going to be going anywhere, is already putting together a transition team. This goes into his whole lack of self-awareness about his current condition. And it's really sad. It is. It's really sad to see him this way. Now, it's not just Biden's cognitive decline that is hurting him. It's also the media. Oh, yes, the media's constant attack on Trump is actually hurting Biden. And this was something that Maher on his, show had pointed out. What is it? Maher does Politically Incorrect, some show like that. But anyways, I know who he is, but for some reason, I can't name Real Time. Yes, Real Time. So anyways, Maher had argued or urged all news outlets to rein it in, saying their coverage could be creating a path for President Donald Trump to win re-election. Now that we're starting to see some hope in all of this, don't hope shame me, Maher said. The problem with nonstop gloom and doom is that it gives Trump the chance to play the optimist. And optimists tend to win American elections. FDR has said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Full of shit as he is, I could see Trump riding that into a second term. And then there will be no more hope left for you to shame. Maher blamed the media for their daily drumbeat of depression and terror, veers into panic porn. Enough with the life will never be the same headlines. But this is only half of the issue here. The other half is, let's take a look at the media coverage for a moment. It's all doom and gloom, all about how many people are going to die, all about how bad the coronavirus is, right? But then we go off and we see Trump is leading the response to the coronavirus. And in doing so, if the outcome doesn't meet the left wing's, doom and gloom projections, what happens? Then it shows that Trump led the way. Trump was very effective in leading the response, cutting what would have been the death rates to a fraction. So let's say they would have thought that the death rate was going to be about 5 million people. And let's say it only turns out to be 70,000 people, right? Still bad numbers. But if the media was projecting around 5 million and it's only 70,000, and Trump comes out and he was talking about his actions and how this would eventually lead to us getting back to normalcy and us eradicating the virus and it disappearing. Who do you think is going to get credit if everyone on the left is saying there's nothing you can do about it? There's no way to stop this. These people are going to die because Trump didn't take a strong enough response. And then Trump comes back and goes, not that many people died. So what happens? Who gets the credit for that? The left will try and go off and give credit to Democrats somehow, but it's not going to be very credible. How does Andrew Cuomo's actions in New York, if you can try and find a way to spin that into him being an effective leader, how does that translate to what happened in California or the state of Washington or anything outside of Governor Cuomo's control of New York? You can't. The only thing all of these states have in common is, they have many different governors, they only have one president. One president leading the response. So the credit can only go to President Trump. Now, it's also interesting that, in going through and taking a look at all of the response here, and this is how it's hurting Joe Biden, is that while they tried to blame President Trump for all of the spread of the coronavirus, not telling the governors to lock everything down in time. But when it comes to reopening the economy, the governors are saying, no, that's our decision, not yours. So the Democrats and the Democrat governors have already taken ownership for the spread of the virus within their own states, letting it be known that the president doesn't determine when they do and don't shut down anything. It is the governors, which then looks at Governor Cuomo in New York and going, if it was your decision to begin with, why did you wait so long? So it damages the Democrats throughout the entire country. So the media's constant doom and gloom, yes, it's going to hurt Biden when we come out the other side of this and see death rates not that much different than what we would see through seasonal flu. That would be a testament to Trump's leadership. Even if that was always going to be the outcome, even if we knew that the coronavirus was not going to be as dangerous as everyone expected and realized that it was going to be somewhere between 50 to 100,000. Even if we knew that going into this, all the hype of the doom and gloom would only serve to benefit President Trump. And let's face it, let's face some reality here. I don't think the media wants Joe Biden to win. I don't think the media wants President Trump to be defeated. Why? Ratings. I mean, you can go back and you can take a look at the media outlets, NBC, MSNBC, ABC, during the Obama administration. They couldn't really get much ratings in because all they could do was just agree with President Obama. And the left, which is their only audience, would tune in, only to hear, oh, yeah, Obama's great, nothing really bad going on, yada, yada, yada. But now that Trump is in office and they're able to fuel anger, people are turning in to these outlets, except for CNN, but people are tuning in to these outlets on the left to get their daily dose of rage. And it's bumping up their ratings, which is bumping up their ad revenues. And the more they attack President Trump, the more the left wants to come in and see what they have to say. And the more Trump is on TV on their networks, which is an interesting dichotomy here, but as they display Trump, the people who hate Trump tune in more to hear more about what Trump did so that they can then bash Trump. So yeah, when it comes down to Joe Biden, it's a situation where Joe Biden is declining cognitively. Joe Biden, is running against an incumbent president. And the media, well, they're not helping Joe Biden with all the doom and gloom and may actually be wanting President Trump to continue so they can keep their ratings and their profits. Either way, Joe Biden having very little chance of winning, you got to wonder if keeping him on camera is elderly abuse.